have memories of Lucy?
I do.
Uh-huh.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
When we would go down to her house with Uncle Homer and Aunt Evelyn and visit, yes, I remember.
Uh-huh.
And I remember she had these green mostly, but colored clear rocks around her flower beds. And
I liked those. They were slag glass, and I have them around my flower beds.
oh, do you?
And I told my friend that, and I said, my grandma used to have these, and he said, and you're the grandma now. So I just love that slag glass, and it's because Grandma Arbeiter had those.
Yeah, well, yeah, I loved my grandma. I knew her. I mean, I got to see her. We got together a little more then because my mom wasn't so sick. But then when Luanda came along, why, you know, she was so
Well,
sick.
and back then, cars were, you know, they just weren't like they are nowadays. To go from Chester down to the Bottoms was a big, a day adventure, you know. I can remember we would stop at this one grocery store in Chester and buy like a loaf of bread and some bologna, you know, to eat on the way down. It was a day adventure.
Yeah. So what was your cash how did you get your dad was a farmer, and the cash did you sell the cream from the milk, and did eggs or?
Eggs and cream they would take to Stillville to a farm.
A truck came in and picked the cream up every
Well,
day.
sometimes they would, well, maybe they did.
Because remember, we girls got to share the money would be in an envelope, your pay, and we girls got to share the like it was 25 cents or 30 cents. That's what we would get to share, you know.
Got in high school, there was, you know, you worked at home.
I never got to go to anything other than the class for school, in high school. And we had back then days, you know, didn't have no power mower. We had these little push mowers, and we had that yard, and we had a push to mower. And entertainment, well, we had a swing that we could swing in the swing. And a lot of our entertainment was the Sears Roebuck catalog. We would take that catalog and we would cut out some pictures of ladies and men, and then we would go shopping in that catalog, and then we would buy this and that. That was our entertainment, that Sears Roebuck catalog.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad enjoyed dancing.
Oh, did they?
They enjoyed dancing, and my uncle, my dad's younger brother, and his wife, they enjoyed dancing. And we would go, that was before you were married, we would go dancing to this place. And I remember we kids would start dancing. You take 2 steps forward and 1 back. That was our first dance step. But they did that.
That's when I always hid behind my mom's skirt because I was so shy I wouldn't go out.
Oh. Did you play instruments or anybody in your family?
No, but our mother,
Daddy did. He played a horn, trumpet.
Did he?
Mom played the piano, didn't she?
she must have played, because when the flood came, she had a beautiful organ. I mean, it was beautiful. When we went back home, all that was left of that beautiful organ was the keyboard. All you could find. In the mud.
Is that right? That had to be so devastating. Everything in the house and losing all of that. Like you said, Luanda, starting over.
I just can't imagine starting over from absolute scratch. No money, no way to make a living. How do they do that? It just...
They did it, but I mean, they never got much, but they survived.
Glass jars. And then you had what they call a coal packer, or it was just a big pan.
It is a coal packer, but you had to put like a teaspoon of salt with that meat, so it would keep. And then you had to boil that for about 3 hours. And on pork, they would fry it down, and you know, these old-time crocks, you know, they would put that in there, and then they would cover it with lard. And
that was a sealer?
That was the sealer.
And the house had what they call cellars, not a basement as such. But then like the vegetables, you know, she canned green beans and carrots and tomatoes, and when the season was about over, she'd mix all that together, and then you had soup bones that she had canned, and you'd have vegetable soup.
Oh, huh. But how did the meat survive in the jar?
Well, I was going to tell you, has anybody told you how they cured the hams back then days? Well, they would cut it off, you know, cut the ham, and they would lay on the table like a 3-foot square cloth, and then they would put newspaper on that cloth, and then they had a mixture of salt, pepper, and brown sugar, and then they would sprinkle that over that paper, and then they would lay the ham on there, and then they would sprinkle the ham with that same mixture, and then they would take that and wrap that cloth around it really tight, and then there would take 2 people, and one of them would turn it this way and the other one that way, and then they would tie it on the back and they would hang it up, and it would keep. And by the next summer, today it would be reported to the health department, and how we didn't die, I don't know. We didn't. And they would take that all off, and it was covered with mold, and you would cut that mold off and eat the ham.
And it'd be good, really delicious ham.
It was good. It was delicious.
Ah, that is amazing.
And we made our own sausage, you know, stuffed it and hung it from the ceiling.
They made blood sausage.
Oh, yeah, that is right.
I couldn't eat it. I had a city friend, her dad owned the quarry at Chester, and she would come out to my house when I was like in the 6th, 7th grade. She loved to come out to the country, and she loved this blood sausage.
Well,
but I mean, it was cooked. They cooked different meats and to Bremen.
Okay.
But I have a story of that our cousin on the Luedeman side, Mabel, she was a family historian, and she has this story about Grandma Arbeiter. After church, she invited the whole congregation to their house for strawberry picking. You remember that story? Anyway, all the people went out picking strawberries. When the strawberries came in and they cleaned them, and they made ice cream and had an ice cream social at Grandma Arbeiter's house. So that was a story from my cousin on my Luedeman side.
Well, we were very poor. We lived down in the bottoms when I was small, when at school. And when I was in the 3rd grade, why, the levees, the water was coming high, and it was forecast it was going to break. So they came around to our houses and said we all had to leave. And we left with the clothes we had on our back. And I had a little doll. Didn't have many toys, but I did have a little doll, and I wanted to take it along. And Mom and Dad said, no, all the cousins will be there. It'll be broke. So we left and went to my grandmother Luedeman's house, my dad's mother. And we all stayed there the night, and the levee broke. And the next morning, the children my age, it wasn't, you know, the bottom is pretty flat, but there's a little hill. And we would stand there and say, how far can we count till we standing in water? And so then we'd back up and do it again. And so then we spend the night at my grandmother's house that night, and she had just filled her basement with coal for the next winter. And we were all laying upstairs, and everybody said, oh, when the water was pouring into the basement, you know, and they all said, it's going to explode. When that hits down there, it's going to explode. So you can imagine us kids up there in the upstairs. Okay, the next morning, the water was about 3 foot high on the house. And government boats came in to get us. And my mom and my dad, and no, Lawanda wasn't born yet, it was Ruthie and I. We got in the boat, and my mom and dad said, could you just take us over to the house so we could grab a couple pieces of clothing, because there's no way to get to the house. See, and he said, all right. So he did, and they climbed in the window, and when they got in there, they barely got in there, and he said, I'm so sorry, but I cannot hold this boat. You've got to get out. So they got out and went in the boat, and we went along, and there was a tree there, and he said to my dad, he said, hold on to that tree because I've lost my power. And then we had to sit there. And then another boat came along and we got to Jacob and they had this elevator there. And some of the animals from the bottom were at the elevator and they were standing this way when the driveway was going this way. And the boat could not get across the railroad tracks, so we all had to get out of the boat and walk behind those animals to the other side of the elevator and get in another boat. And then they took us up to Route 3, and somehow, I don't know how, but somehow we got to Murphy, to Andela and Rudy Buck, to their house. And so we stayed with them. And then Salvation Army or something provided us with a little clothes. And then down there at the park, they had a building, and we would walk down there once a day for our meal. And we had to stay because the flood lasted quite a long time. So we stayed with Andela and Uncle Rudy Buck.
And what year was that, Violet?
Golly.
About 42.
43. Was it 43 or 40?
I was
Somewhere.
little, but I'll never forget, this Uncle Rudy Buck had a little grocery store in Murfreesboro. And we were eating a meal there, and he said, do you want some potatoes? And he passed this bowl, and I looked at him. I was like 2.
Yeah, you were small.
It was potato chips, and I had never seen a potato chip in my life, and I didn't know what he was talking about, passing the potatoes, you know.
Oh, that one didn't look like a potato.
My first experience with a potato chip. See, then they had another flood in 44 or something like that. And I can remember at that point, I don't remember all this getting out like you do, but we stayed at Campbell Hill at a big house. And that's when my dad, he rented a farm down at the Jacob land. Somebody told him about a farm that was open to be rented at Bremen. Huh?
I can tell you how. Aunt Alma and Uncle Ernst and their family and some more people. This was a big 13-room house that was next to the farm that our mom and dad moved to. And they were all staying there. And the Wilsons owned it. And they told my mom and dad, because we had no money, when they lost everything they had. I mean, the second time they put the chickens in the house, thinking they'd save them. Or maybe that was the first time, I'm not sure. Anyway, then all these dead chickens and all that mud was in the house. I mean, the water was like 7 foot high in the house.
So
but they lived up there.
How did they start over? I mean, I've always wondered about that. How do you start over when you have nothing?
I don't know. They had a John Deere tractor, and during the flood, all that was left out of the John Deere tractor was the pipe, air pipe, no, what do you call it?
Or where the exhaust went?
Exhaust pipe, yeah. And that was all. So they had it cleaned up, and he could use that. And somehow they salvaged like Ruthie said, we moved up to Bremen. And that was the second one.
Yes, that was the second flood.
And
I don't remember.
they had their cows, and somehow the government got a lot of the animals from the bottom when that flood came, and they moved them to Missouri. And people had to go over there and claim their animals.
Across
So
the
that's
river.
how they survived, that they had some animals.
Yeah, I was
And
too
then-
little to remember that. I don't remember all that.
So they took them across the Mississippi to the other side, which
Yeah.
was Missouri.
Yes.
And then they had to do that again the second flood?
No, the second time they gave us warning because the levee was not rebuilt, and they gave us warning. And so then somebody, I don't know who, moved our animals up to Bremen, I mean to Campbell Hill, to a farm. And then we stayed in Tegmar's house. It was an old house, and they owned the store in Campbell Hill, but they let us stay there. And then their animals were down at the farm below the hill from where we were staying. And they would have to... Salgers. And we'd go down every day and milk them cows twice a day. They'd have to walk down there
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yes.
I really missed out.
Yeah, you missed out. You were not there.
For my confirmation, I was going to a Lutheran school at Chester. And back then, to go to a Lutheran school, you couldn't ride the school bus that the public school kids rode. You had to pay to ride it. So Dad coughed up, I think it was like $40 for the year, but that was a lot of money back then. So I could go to Lutheran school in Chester. And Mom had a heart attack in January, and I got confirmed in April, and they made me be the first one to get confirmed so that Mom could hear me get confirmed over the radio, but she still was semi-bedfast.
She was in bed my entire first grade year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I remember that she was, and I remember the dog sitting on the step waiting for her to come out. He was her dog, and he couldn't understand, but she was sick the whole my first grade year.
I gotta tell a funny story though about Mom. Like I said, she was so willing to work. When we lived down at Jacob, we had just moved down there, and my birthday was in February. So she was gonna have company come for my birthday. And I'm thinking, I don't know if it was chicken or turkey, I forget what she made, and mashed potatoes. And back then they bought their salt and their sugar in large quantities or bags. And I guess with her feeling so bad, she got it mixed up, and she cooked the mashed potatoes and the turkey or chicken or whatever with sugar instead of salt.
Oh.
And we were out on that screened-in porch, that table there, and everybody was, pass the salt, pass the salt. Nobody wanted to say anything. It just didn't taste quite right, Later on, after the company was left, it was discovered that she used, but that was in February when she died in August, so,
Yeah.
Died in April, I'm sorry. This
Do
was
you
in
think
February.
she had high blood pressure? They didn't really have medicine for that back in those days, or?
I really don't
No
know,
one
but she
really-
was in St. Louis Hospital for a long time. And she was in what they called a ward with 10 or more people in there, and it was terrible, but despite, I have to say, despite as sick as she was, back them days they shocked the corn by hand, and my mom would go out with my dad, and
I remember riding in the wagon.
we would be in the wagon, and they had how they did to break the corn from the husk and throw it in the wagon. How they didn't hit us, but they did, and Mom was out there with Dad, sick and everything.
A hay wagon too, remember?
Uh-huh.
They would load that hay, and you and I would be up there stomping it down, so they could get
More in there?
this
So it didn't fly off, it'd be solid.
This place that they rented at Bremen had fabulous buildings. The barn had floors that,
About like the floor
Yeah.
in the house
Oh,
here.
oh,
It was
uh-huh.
wonderful.
and they had this sling that you put 3 slings on a wagon, and that hooked together at the bottom, and they would take this sling and tie it together, and then I guess they used a horse to pull it, and that would bring it up, and then take it, and then they trip that rope, and that hay would drop in this hayloft.
Uh-huh.
But we had to be, Mom and Dad would pitch it on the wagon, we'd have to, Violet and I would be with our forks, hay forks, and spread it out, and you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
We had
But
we had a
despite
good
our
life.
poorness, we were happy.
Yeah,
We were happy.
we had a good life.
Mom was sick, but we were still happy. She would sit in her rocking chair, especially when she was pregnant with LaWanda. She would sit in there and she would
That's
think.
why I like rocking.
That's why.
I can't sit still. I noticed you guys are sitting still and I'm rocking.
Yeah, then she would sing hymns, and
Uh-huh.
and she didn't feel good, but she never.
Really good at telling stories, but I did have a different life. I didn't go through any floods at all. I was born in the hills.
And when Dad had us 2 girls, and I was in the first grade when she was born, and I can remember him so well coming home and saying, just another dishwasher.
Yeah.
He wanted
I was
a boy.
really wanted.
But look how LaWanda turned out. She
Well,
was great.
I'm thinking Mama shouldn't even have had me because she was so sick all the time. But anyway, she did. So
Uh-huh.
the hills weren't very fertile, I guess is the word. And the dewberries grew wild in our hills. And no relative had dewberries. And all the relatives lived in the bottoms. And my mom made sure everyone had their fair share of dewberries.
Well, Aunt Alma Zerps would come up, I remember, and even pick some of these dewberries too.
It was always on my birthday.
Oh, wasn't it?
In June. Dewberry.
Oh,
It's a kind of a blackberry, but it doesn't have that many seeds, I don't think.
And it
What-
grows low, it's
Yeah.
on the ground, you gotta
Yeah, and
bend down.
my mom would can them, and we'd eat them in the winter on rice pudding. And I was an adult away from home before I realized rice wasn't a dessert. It's a it's a substitute for potatoes, but we never had rice except with rice pudding.
When
And-
they had, years ago, they would, on our wheat crop, they had a baler, I think is what they called it. It would drive through the field and it would throw out bales. They tied this wheat
Right.
together.
Uh-huh.
And then I can remember Mom and Dad would go out and they would stack these bales up to dry.
Uh-huh.
That was a binder.
Or binder, okay. Anyway, then they would have the whole community. They had a thrashing machine,
Mm-hmm.
and then these men would all come and they'd go from house to house, helping, and then they would put these bales through this thrashing machine, and the wheat would come out, and then they would have these great big straw piles. And
Uh-huh.
that's what the cattle would hover around in the wintertime. And as they, that's how they made manure.
Okay.
And they would haul that manure back on the fields to fertilize it come spring.
Did the cows, what did they do with the straw though? Did it keep them warm?
They kind of would huddle up to it
Uh-huh.
in the wintertime on this, what was it, just a big straw
Big
pile.
straw pile,
Yes. Uh-huh.
And there was our family was the only family in this whole road at Bremen that had any kids. Nobody had any kids.
Oh.
And so I was always Dad's tomboy, because Violet always had to help Mom cook because Mom felt bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was the water boy for this thrashing crew. And when they had settled up at the end of a week or 2 weeks, I guess, I don't know how they did it, paid by the amount of wheat they thrashed or something. I kind of like ended up with a few dollars in my pocket because I was the water boy. I would haul these jugs of water out to these men when they come in from the field.
Uh-huh.
And I was Dad's tomboy. When I'd hear that John Deere tractor coming, I'd run as fast as my legs could carry me so I could drive that John Deere tractor in.
Oh, huh. And how old were you when you first drove it? Do you remember?
Pretty young.
Pretty young. Yeah.
And I guess they could tell it too. I'm talking too much.
I never did drive the John Deere, but I drove the little Ford Ferguson.
Okay. When they transferred from horses to tractors,
Mm-hmm.
the planters, for the corn crop and different things were horse-drawn.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do, they cut this tongue, they called it, off of this planter, but somebody had to ride back on this planter, so that was my job.
Oh,
But yeah, I was the outdoor, because she always helped Mom. And you'd have to put that planter down, that's how they got your corn rows even.
Uh-huh.
And by that time, I was in high school, and everybody would come in, they just marveled at my suntan. But it was only on the front side. Because I was always sitting in this planter,
Uh-huh.
And I loved the farm, except I hated animals. to this day.
And that's what I had to do.
To this day, I do not care for animals.
So you didn't milk the cows?
I had to, but I hated it.
I'm
hated
the
it.
one who really milked the cows.
And I just didn't have enough power in my hands to make that milk come out, and they'd swat you with their tails. I hated them.
Well, in the morning, we would have to get up, and we had these cows in the stall in the barn, and we had to have our little old milk bucket that held about 2 gallons, and we'd have a little stool that had 3 little legs on it, and you'd have to sit on the stool, put that bucket under the cow, and like she said, milk it into that bucket, and take it in the house, and then we had a separator that you would pour the milk into a big old tank, and you'd crank the wheel, and then the machine would separate the milk from the cream. And the cream would go over here and the milk over here, and they would take the cream and they would sell that in the market, and the milk, well, we used some of it, and they'd feed it to the pigs. And then, well, if we in school, then we would go to school, come home, and then we had to do the chores, help Mom do dishes, and then they had the old wash machines where they were gasoline. They did run by a motor, but they had the wringer type. You had to put your clothes through that wringer to get it wrung out.
We had one too.
Did you? Yeah, that was then.
Well, I remember in the winter, Daddy's overalls would stand up in the kitchen. When if they'd be frozen solid, they'd be standing here in the kitchen.
And Mom would can everything from the dewberries and the blackberries, and they also canned meat, you know, like chunks of beef. And she did this all with her ill health. I mean, Mom was sick all the time, but she worked like a dog. At this garden, this house that we lived in was owned by a real elderly lady, but we shared that house with her. You know, she had her rooms, and Mom would make butter, and would always give Mrs. Snaker a bowl of butter. And
Trading center in Steelville, and the meat, the wheat and stuff, they would take to the elevator. That was, money was tight.
Yeah.
I mean, when when we would go to the store, my dad was good. I don't want to say things, but you know, he said, coffee, sugar, flour. They don't buy much else either. That was about
they would take a case of eggs. There was a case, and you fill that case with eggs, and you take it to this young store there at Chester, and that better buy the groceries. That case of eggs, you know. But then there was a tavern in Bremen, and Dad would have to stop and get him one beer. But he'd always make sure that he'd either bring out us an Almond Joy candy bar or something. And I always got to tell a story about Mom. She would take one drink of Dad's beer, and she'd go, you know, Mom, why do you do that if you don't like it? But she'd do it every time. She'd take one swallow and
She didn't want him to have the whole bottle. Yeah, Mom would never go in the tavern either. She'd sit outside, because I remember sitting outside
we'd
with her.
sit in the car, but he'd drink his one beer, because you didn't have refrigerators to bring something home like that.
didn't have the money either.
Well, that's true. But he would go drink that beer, and he would bring us a candy bar or something.
And one time for 4th of July, to get ice cream and stuff, that was almost a no-no. So they promised us they would take us to town to get us an ice cream cone for 4th of July. That was our treat.
And for Christmas, Dad would sell one pig. And what that pig would bring is what they spent on Christmas. And you always got a bag of oranges, because, you know, they didn't buy oranges that regularly, but that was part of your Christmas along with that bag of oranges and whatever that pig would bring, you know.
It was mostly things we could eat.
Yeah, but I mean, that was
And our neighbor gave us a little doll. She was married before and had a little girl, and then she died. And then she married our neighbor, and they gave us this little doll. And then Alma, this little doll wasn't in too good a shape, didn't have no clothes. And Alma made it like a bride, the wedding gown, and we were so proud of that doll.
I told you the story down in Jacob, when we was down at Bottoms Up, about when she was born. I wanted a doll really bad, and she was born in June, and this was the Christmas program. And the Lutheran church at Steelville is a big church, and Mom would sit in the back row, you know, it was back when they breastfed and everything. And they told me that if I would say my piece, my Christmas piece, loud enough that Mom could hear it in the back row, I would get a doll. And believe you me, when I said my Christmas piece, everybody caught up. Because I wanted to make sure I got that doll.
And you wound up with me, is that what?
Yeah, she got 2 dolls, didn't she?
Well, then.
Yeah.
Cooked cheese, I didn't care for it, but a lot of people liked it.
Was that like what Aunt Hilda did,
I
and it
think.
smelled bad?
Yes.
Well, it tasted wonderful when it was coming out of the skillet hot on a piece of homemade bread. It was heaven. I don't know what you didn't like it, but I thought it was
Well, it
wonderful.
kind of got hard when it got
Oh,
cold.
I didn't like hard ones. No, I liked it when it
I
was.
liked it. But anyway, then
Yeah.
there was 2 old gentlemen that lived down the road from us, but Mom would make sure that they liked that cheese.
That's what I remember from my mother more than any other thing. No one left her house hungry,
No.
ever.
Mm-hmm.
Never. They'd leave after a meal, or she gave them something, or whatever. I was pretty young when she died, but I remember that very vividly.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
always made.
Nobody left without eating,
No.
whether it was an afternoon lunch or an evening snack.
Mm-hmm. So how old were you
I was.
when she passed away? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was 11.
11. That's
Uh-huh.
very young.
Yeah,
I was a senior in high school. We moved down. Mom knew, I think she knew she wouldn't live real long. And she wanted to get back down from Bremen where we live. That's between Chester and Steelville. I mean, Bremen's just kind of a little settlement. And Dad had a chance to go back to the same farm that they left when they left the water. That
Okay.
same farm.
Uh-huh.
They moved down there in August. It was my senior year. I had to change school for my senior year. And she died in April.
Oh.
And she wanted us down there with Aunt Alma and Aunt Hildy to help look after her girls.
well, Aunt Hilda, after Mom died, every Saturday without fail would bring us fresh coffee cake.
Oh, it was so good.
She made a lemon coffee cake that was to die for, and she did that without fail.
Yeah.
And my Aunt Alma, she just practically took me in. I mean, it was like, I can remember her kitchen, and there'd be racks hanging from the ceiling and from the chairs of noodles that she had just made. I mean, it was just awesome. And then I could go to the catalog and say, I'd like to have this dress. And she'd get some kind of material and she'd make it.
Okay.
Without a pattern, without anything. She just would make it.
Uh-huh.
Back then, they bought feed for the chickens and what have you from a feed store. But this feed came in a cotton printed cloth.
Mm-hmm.
And Mom would go with Dad to this feed store to make sure that he got several sacks of this same pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And as hard as Mom worked, she never sewed. She just couldn't sew. And Alma Zerps would make our
I don't think we'd have had any clothes without Aunt Alma.
You know, they put Rick Rack on
Really,
this.
I mean, she made all our clothes, and she would take all elderly clothes, people's clothes, take it apart, remake it, and make clothes for us.
This landlord that owned the farm and lived in a house with us had a daughter and son and a granddaughter that lived in Chicago. And this granddaughter was like 20 or something like that. And she would bring down clothes that she was tired of, and Alma would redo that for us girls. And it would be nice clothes.
The second and third grade pictures, I think I have some very classy old lady dresses that are in my school pictures. Very classy, little frills on them.
But in spite of it, we had a good life. I mean, it sounds like we're crying poor.
We didn't know we were poor.
No,
Everybody else was poor too.
We had a good life.
But how was it after, for you, Luanda, 11's really young to lose your mom, so did Ruthie kind of
Well,
fill in as
Violet
your mom?
you were married, Ruth got married. Ruth she had a job. She got a job. And she bought a television. We never had a television. And I remember one time Daddy and Ruth went to the town for some reason, and I didn't want to go along. I wanted to watch television. And, I'll be fine. Well, they were longer than they thought they would be, and it got dark, and I was watching House on Haunted Hill. I'll never forget it. It was so scary. I was looking out the window, seeing when they were going to come, and when they got home, you do okay? Oh yeah, I'm fine.
I thought you were going to tell a different story.
Well, then she got married and took her TV with her.
That's what I thought she was going to tell.
Oh, gosh. I think Ruthie was a little bit of a stinker.
I think you made that up. I think you made that up.
No, I did not.
I have one more thing to say about Aunt Alma and Uncle Ernst's place. When the floods came that time and the levee broke, there was such a current, and the house was over here and the barn was over there, and that water was coming in. It was a swirling, and it made a really deep hole. And so when they came back home, there was in the house all this mud, and everything was covered with mud, and here was this big hole. So they just took everything out of the house and put it in that hole. And Evelyn, the daughter, said in later life, all my wealth is in that hole down
Oh
in
my
the ground.
gosh. Oh my goodness.
So that was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she really loved antique furniture
I
too.
know. No, they covered it up. You know, it was a big old hole and everything. The dishes were dirty. I mean, the furniture was tore apart. And, there wasn't nothing left. They just took it all out there and dumped it in a hole and put dirt on top of it.
Gosh.
I got to add something else to my life. My mom, when we moved down to Jacob, I just was going to quit high school. I mean, to change high schools for your senior year was not good. And I was going from a high school where there was 125 in my class to a high school where there was 125 in the school. But anyway, I was working at a Prim hosiery in Chester, and I was just going to stay working there and not go back for my senior year. And the principal at Gorham High School came and visited out to our house and said, Ruth, you don't want to quit high school. And he talked me into going to school a week after school started. But anyway, most of the time everybody's got their friends, really picked out by the time they're seniors in high school. My now sister-in-law, her best friend was a senior that graduated a year ahead of her. And not that she didn't have a bunch of friends, but she and I just clicked. We became best friends. And when my mother died, her mother just took me in. When you needed a skirt made for square dancing at high school, she made Sharon one, she made me one. And she happened to have a son. Sharon happened to have a brother that's a couple years older. And my one aunt would tease me, well, you can maybe go with that Miller boy. Oh, I wouldn't go with him as the last boy on earth.
You married him.
And then oh my gosh.
She was the best mother-in-law any person could possibly have. I mean, all my life. I didn't have my mother was gone, but not everybody has a mother-in-law like I had. You know that.
Yeah.
She was wonderful.
Okay, well, when I was little, That was my very favorite sausage that
Really?
my dad and mom made. I loved it on apple butter bread. And it had a tongue in it, I think, little pieces of meat.
Yeah.
And I probably was after Mom died, and I was at Aunt Ida's. They were butchering. And she was in the kitchen with her arm in the bucket, and she was just doing this, and her arm was all red. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm making blood sausage." Blutwurst was blood sausage.
Oh.
I never ate it again, ever.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, it was, I was traumatized. It was like, it was coagulated blood.
And they cooked the tongue and what?
I don't know, I don't think there was anything
I never
else.
liked it.
Yeah, well, it had meat. I mean, then
Not
they-
much. It had those hunks of tongue.
Yeah.
Well, because they made blood sausage, they made liver sausage,
I didn't like
they
any of
made
it.
head cheese.
Oh, that was disgusting.
Well, this big butcher shop up at St. Labori, close to where Evelyn Zerps used to live
Uh-huh.
up there, they still sell that head cheese.
Yeah,
I'm
they
not
use
sure
it,
what they
I mean,
put
they
in it.
use it in different sausages, however they're desired, but it goes like the heart and the tongue and sometimes the ears, if they would clean that all off, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And the brain, what about brain
They fried that, I
sandwiches?
didn't like that either.
That was our dad's favorite thing. That was his thing. He was welcome to it. But that was a treat for him.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. I didn't like none of that stuff.
Where did all these famous coffee cakes come from? Is this a German background, or is this local, or?
I don't know, and Aunt
Yeah.
Hilda made them.
The Kuchen.
I think they're German because over in Missouri, where Grandma Arbeiter in that area, they still, to this day, for weddings and stuff, they make coffee cakes. In fact,
Okay.
when Joyce got married, Marvin requested coffee cakes like they made over there.
Steelville, where Joyce lives, that just recently their church had, the ladies make coffee cakes and sell them.
Yeah, it's called Kuchen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
but
tried.
Remember
I've got-
that word? Kuchen?
No?
I've tried. I have a Jacob Christ Lutheran, couple of their cookbooks, and I got one from the Campbell Hill, and they got coffee cake recipes in it. And I have tried.
Caramel rolls. They were pretty good. The kind that had the caramel and the pecans and they're all
yeah.
swirled together
Yeah.
with cinnamon. Yeah, they were really good. And peanut butter coffee cake, which she still makes. Awesome.
Oh.
Yeah.
The dough ain't like it used to, like those women make though.
And Edna, your mom speak German, like Alma and Hilda? Did she?
They didn't do much.
Only when Grandma Arbeiter would come, because I don't know which was what, but one was High German and one was Low German. So whichever parent was there, they was talking that kind of German.
Oh.
But we never learned it.
They kind of quit speaking German after World War II, right?
Well-
Pretty much. I can remember in the 50s as a little girl, Aunt Alma, around the dining room table at Aunt Hilda's speaking German. And she said, I'm sliding my words over the table. So a lot of noise going on. I think she was saying in order, so the people on the other side could hear
Yeah.
me. But
Well, I remember, this is again Mabel's story, after the war, World War I, they had officers of the government coming through, because it's a German community, they would check on them.
They weren't supposed to talk German?
Well, no, they were checking to see if they were loyal to Germany or,
And
you
so
know.
the churches could not have German service.
Yeah, I remember she said that they would make regular visits and somebody would have to stay home because during the Depression, people would steal their chickens and their meat and stuff. So somebody would have to stay home to protect it.
that's interesting.
Yeah, life wasn't all that good for the German community and after the war.
Yeah.
We were living at Bremen at that time, when I was in the 8th grade, to be confirmed. And like I said, I was the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade down at Jacob Nenner's at the school, and then the floods came and we moved, so they thought I had to be confirmed, so I was sent to my other grandma, not Arbeiter, but my other grandma, and I had to live with her for a year and go to school there so I could be confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the one, we were out in the barn milking cows one time, and she was this little tot standing there, and she, oh, I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to go.
Did
Well,
I say
didn't
that?
want to go either, but I had to, so.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh
Oh.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you kind of doted on Luanda, huh?
No,
Little
I was
bit.
in their way all the time.
No, no.
Yes, I was. I was just old enough to be a big nuisance.
I remember I got in really bad trouble one day. Dad didn't chew as such, but I guess once in a blue moon he did, and he had a plug of chewing tobacco. And it was, they called it a wash stand. Back then you didn't have a bathroom. You had this wash bowl, that's where you washed up all the time. And on his in the bottom drawer of that, Dad kept some of his, I don't know what, t-shirts and what have you. And I saw this plug of chewing tobacco, and she was just a little tyke, and I told her it was candy. And she bit into it and spit, and oh my God, Mom and Dad got so mad at me.
Like I say, I was just old enough to be in their way all the time. There's 10 years between Violet and I, and 6 years between Ruth and I.
Lloyd and I started out absolutely nothing. Down in Jacob, there wasn't places to live.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived in this little bitty old house, 3 rooms, and then we had 2 kids close together. And this old store came for sale on the main street of Jacob, and we bought that. I ran this little confection store in front. And after about 8 years, there was something called Farmers Home Administration, where you could borrow money, and we got a loan, and we built this house at Jacob. And then James Arbeiter came and knocked on our front door. By that time, I was postmaster at Ava, and my husband was postmaster at Willisville. And he said, neither one of you are working down here anymore. Would you consider selling this house?
Ah.
Well, I don't know. Lloyd said, I'll sell anything if the price is right. Or anything but my wife if the price is right. So he did. And a week later, he brought Laurie to look at it, and they bought our house.
Oh.
And I said, Lloyd, where are we going to go? Both of our kids was married and lived here in Murfreesboro. And we went out looking, and we found this house that we're in now. And
Tell us a little bit about when you went to Evansville and how you got there.
okay, Violet was working at the Chester City Dairy and making a little bit of money, and she decided to, I don't know if they invited us or how it got started, but anyway.
We wanted to see them. We did not know your mom and dad, and really not Uncle Clarence and Aunt Eldon. Like we should. We really never got to see him, and we wanted to see him, and I could afford to buy us a ticket, and Luanda was too little, and we had a wonderful time.
But Dad took us to Carbondale, and we got on a bus and rode over to Evansville, and we spent a week there, and man, going to see in a big theater to Gone with the Wind, and going to Santa Claus, Indiana, and it was just a trip of a lifetime for me.
Yeah, I bet they were delighted to have you.
And they were so good to us. I mean, they were just so good to us. It was wonderful. I'll never forget the trip and how nice they were to us.
Well,
And then later on, I got to go to see, your mom and dad were already gone, but Evelyn Serps used to be, she lost her husband and she remarried Clint Lear, and they were really pretty good friends with Uncle Clarence and Aunt Nelda, knew him more than I did, because she was older. And they would take us along, and we would go over there and visit with Uncle Clarence, and he would tell us stories about the war, and you gave me some of that tape, and we just had a good time with him then.
Yeah.
We learned to know him.
Well,
And then your mom and dad's anniversary.
Yeah.
That was so special.
Yeah.
So special.
They talked about that till the day they died. It was really.
That's how we got connected. My husband and I got closer to Uncle Clarence too. We took Evelyn and Clint over one time, and then we like bluegrass music. I like all music. Anyway, we'd go over to this bluegrass festival at Henderson, Indiana, and Uncle Clarence, we got to know them a little bit, and he would always insist that we come to their house. And I play a guitar a little bit, and I'd always have to bring my guitar, and he'd make me play a few songs, and then we'd go out to supper, and we did that for, 5-6 years, I guess. That's how I got close to Uncle Clarence.
Yeah, I think,
He always says, I'm going to tell you a story. Now maybe you've heard it before, but I'd like to hear it again myself. He was so funny. Okay, we're done.
that's wonderful.